The twin suns of Ketharn Prime painted the sky with streaks of violet and gold, their light bending around the thick clouds that permanently shrouded the atmosphere. The shimmering, electric pulses of flare energy in the air flickered across the landscape like the pulse of a living thing, as if the planet itself was trying to warn those who dared enter its orbit. For Riley Matthew Cole, a freshly minted cadet at the Galactic Military Academy, the view was stunning, but it wasn't the breathtaking beauty that held his attention. No, it was the gauntlet that awaited him. Riley stared out the window of the mag tram as it sped along the tracks, the data overlays shimmering against the glass. Heat index, brutal. UV risk, extreme. Fauna hazard levels fluctuating between orange and red. The Academy had warned him this would be no easy training ground. Ketharn Prime was a test, one that didn't care if you were human, alien, or anything in between. And as Riley looked around, he knew one thing for sure: he didn't belong here. It had been only a few weeks since humanity's integration into the Galactic Alliance. A mere 20 years since the humans had taken their first steps into the cosmos. And in that short time, the galaxy had learned one thing: humans were unpredictable. Their history was a patchwork of violence, survival, and innovation, and those traits had made them both a valuable and terrifying addition to the interspecies military. Riley didn't feel like a warrior. He was just a kid who wanted to prove himself, to show that humanity could contribute to the galaxy, to protect its place in the universe. But so far, all he'd proven was that he was a curiosity, an anomaly. He adjusted the collar of his Academy-issued field jacket, the synthetic material damp with sweat. The humid air of Ketharn Prime pressed in on him, thick and suffocating. It wasn't helping his case, not by a long shot. Across from him sat a cadet from Darn, a tall, bark-skinned being with sharp features, vines that ran like tattoos down its arms, and a wary stare. Its eyes narrowed as it studied Riley, as if trying to decode the strange creature sitting across from it. "You smell inconsistent," the Darn cadet muttered. Riley resisted the urge to scratch his neck. "Probably the deodorant," he said, trying to sound casual. "Aluminum-based." The Darn snorted, a soft rustling coming from the vines along its collarbone. "It's not a crime, is it?" Riley forced a smile. "Not last time I checked." The tram jerked to a halt, and Riley stood, adjusting his gear, the weight of the situation settling heavily on his shoulders. The Darn cadet didn't look at him again, its gaze focusing somewhere outside the tram. Riley followed its line of sight, taking in the sprawling academy complex that lay beyond. Metal structures rose like alien trees, with antennae, sensor discs, and camouflage plating stretching across the campus. No paths, just guidance drones buzzing overhead, their mechanical voices echoing as they ushered cadets to their next task. As Riley stepped off the tram, a guide drone beeped at him, its voice crisp and feminine. "Cadet Riley Matthew Cole, Habitat Pod assigned. Training Group 4, Delta. First mission briefing in 22 planetary hours. Eat water-rich food, hydration loss rate at 40%. He made his way through the academy grounds, feeling more like a piece of equipment than a person. The others, the experienced cadets, had already formed tight-knit groups, exchanging greetings and scanning each other with the practiced precision of those who knew how to survive in this galaxy. Riley, on the other hand, stuck to the edges, avoiding eye contact. His scores in simulations had been average. Reflexes, good. Aim, fair. Hand-to-hand combat, abysmal. He wasn't exactly the poster child for success. By day 5, he'd learned that he was the odd one out. A human among aliens, species that had shared history, shared genes, and a bond forged over centuries of cooperation. Humanity, by contrast, had only just arrived. They were mythological, unpredictable, erratic, as one instructor had said during orientation. The academy was a crucible, a place where the strongest would rise. Riley wasn't sure he was one of them, but he wasn't going to quit. When they announced the gauntlet test, Riley's stomach sank. He knew about it, everyone did. The gauntlet was the culmination of years of military integration training. A bioengineered apex predator crafted with traits from 12 of the deadliest species across the galaxy. It didn't kill randomly, it hunted. It tested. And no cadet had ever passed without injury. The goal wasn't victory, it was survival. After the announcement, a thick silence fell over the cadets, the calm before the storm. Some began preparing, running through drills, sharpening weapons, aligning their scales or tusks, whatever their species required. Riley didn't move. He just stood there, heart hammering in his chest, knowing he wasn't prepared for this. When the draw came for positions, Riley pulled the short straw. Periphery, gate theta, luck of the draw. No cover, no allies in sight. Good luck, said a cadet, one who had no idea how bad this would be. They might as well have said goodbye. Riley tried to sleep that night, but the tension kept him wide awake. His mind wandered to his sister back home. If I die from space tiger mauling, delete my playlists. They're embarrassing. She replied quickly, don't die, but if you do, I'll tell people you went out fighting dragons. Riley smiled at the message, but even the smile didn't ease his nerves. The morning of the gauntlet test arrived like a hammer to the chest. The arena was carved into the side of a caldera, massive observation shields hovering above, and the seats filled with instructors and dignitaries. Riley stood in his assigned zone, no cover, no protection, just his suit and a stunner. He could feel the weight of every cadet's gaze on him as they watched from their positions, but he wasn't concerned with them. He was worried about the creature that would be released. The gate opened with a deep mechanical groan. Dust kicked up, swirling around the arena, and then through the cloud of smoke it appeared. The gauntlet beast. Built like a panther but twice the size of a bull, its plated muscle structures rippled under the alien skin. Thermal disrupting hide. Black eyes like submerged obsidian. It moved with silent precision, the hairs on Riley's neck standing on end as it glided toward the center of the arena. Riley's breath hitched. His fingers twitched against the stunner, ready to fire, but something deep inside him told him to wait. The creature paused, its massive head swiveling. It locked eyes with Riley. The air around him seemed to freeze. His heart thundered in his chest, his body rooted to the spot. And then, to everyone's shock, the gauntlet beast turned, away from the clustered cadets, away from the instructors, and towards Riley. It moved silently toward him, its massive paws barely making a sound against the dirt. Riley's breath caught in his throat as the predator approached, its eyes never leaving his. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to run, to fight, to do anything, but he didn't move. The beast stopped in front of him, sniffing the air once, then again. And then, without warning, it lay down beside him. Riley stood frozen, his heart pounding, his mind racing. It had ignored the others. It had ignored the instructors, the drones, the weapons. It had chosen him. And the academy, it had no idea what to do. The hum of the observation shields above the arena was the only sound that filled the tense silence. Riley stood frozen, the massive apex predator resting peacefully by his side, its massive body curled protectively against him. His hand was still gripped tightly around the stunner, though he hadn't dared to fire it. He didn't know why. The beast had done nothing to provoke him, yet its presence was overwhelming. He could feel the heat of its breath, the rhythm of its low, rumbling purr vibrating through the ground beneath him. Instructors shouted at each other, some trying to get the situation under control, others simply gawking at the scene unfolding before them. Riley stood still, hardly daring to breathe, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. What in the seven hells is happening? An instructor barked from across the arena, the voice crackling through the comms. Another instructor, her voice shaky, replied, "This shouldn't be possible. It was never programmed to behave like this." The voice of Commander Horan, the lead instructor, cut through the chaos. "All cadets stay in position. We'll resolve this." But Riley wasn't listening anymore. His mind was spinning, trying to understand what was happening. The gauntlet beast, an apex predator engineered to test cadets, had chosen him for reasons unknown. It wasn't attacking, it wasn't growling or snarling, it wasn't doing any of the things it was supposed to do. It was lying next to him as though it had claimed him as its own. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours, and all Riley could do was stand there, his body trembling with the unspoken weight of the moment. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the creature raised its massive head, its obsidian eyes still locked on Riley's. The instructor's frantic shouts grew louder, more urgent. The situation was quickly spiraling out of their control. "Riley," the voice of Cadet Yanari, a small, six-limbed alien from Xi-4, broke through the noise. She was standing at the edge of the arena, watching with wide, curious eyes. "Are you okay?" Riley didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at the creature beside him, its massive form stretched across the ground like a predator at rest. He hadn't moved. He didn't know what to do. The creature's massive head was resting near his feet now, its eyes half-lidded as if it was content, comfortable even. "I'm not sure," Riley admitted, his voice strained as he forced himself to look away from the creature. "It's just lying here." The tension in the arena was palpable, thick enough to cut through. The other cadets were starting to grow restless, exchanging uneasy glances. Some of them, Riley noticed, were visibly shaking. The apex predator wasn't just any beast. It was designed to hunt, to survive, to test the cadets' skills. And here it was, ignoring them all and resting next to the one human among them. Another instructor, his voice edged with disbelief, finally spoke. The beast! It's not following its directives. It should have attacked. It should have targeted the closest threat. Isn't that what we are, though? Riley muttered, his voice low. He wasn't sure why he said it, but it felt right. Threats. Yanari raised an eyebrow. You're hardly a threat. You look more like someone they'd feed to the thing. The remark might have been playful, but the reality of the situation was sinking in. Riley was the one who had been targeted by the apex predator, and he didn't know if it was because of his scent, his pheromones, or something else entirely, but it wasn't a coincidence. The beast wasn't simply ignoring him, it had actively chosen him. An instructor's voice crackled through the comms again, more composed this time. We need to get the cadets out of the arena. Now, evacuate. But Riley didn't move. He was still standing there, frozen, his gaze locked on the gauntlet beast beside him. Something about it seemed different. It wasn't behaving the way it should. He had been prepared for a fight, for an encounter that would test his survival instincts. But this wasn't part of the training. This was beyond anything he'd ever prepared for. The creature shifted slightly, its long tail sweeping across the ground, sending up a cloud of dust. Riley instinctively took a step back, but the beast didn't move. It simply looked up at him, as though acknowledging his retreat without care. Cadet Riley, the voice of Commander Horan broke through the silence once more forceful now. Do not engage with the creature. Step away immediately. That's an order. Riley hesitated. The weight of the moment hung over him. If he stepped back now, would he be abandoning something he still didn't understand? He had heard stories about humanity's unexpected influence in the galaxy, about how their unpredictability could sometimes tip the scales in their favor. Was this another case of that? Had he inadvertently gained the trust of the beast? The voice of Instructor Dunn, a century with onyx-black skin, echoed through the comms. Status report. What is the creature's behavior? Another voice responded, clearly frustrated. It's calm, it's acting like it's not a threat. Riley felt his breath catch in his throat. The apex predator, calm? It was a paradox. He didn't understand it, didn't know how to process it. He couldn't just stand here forever. He needed to move. Get back, came a sharp command, but Riley didn't listen. He took a step forward, unsure of what to do next. The creature's black eyes watched him, unwavering. It had no interest in the other cadets, no interest in the weapons that had been aimed at it. It was only concerned with him. The instructor's voice crackled again, this time with a note of caution. Cadet Cole, we need you to get clear. You are not authorized to engage with the creature. It has become an anomaly. Riley opened his mouth to speak, but before he could form the words, the creature did something unexpected. Its massive head dipped low, nuzzling against his leg in a surprisingly gentle gesture. It was as if the beast had claimed him, and for a brief moment, Riley felt something he hadn't expected to feel in this hostile environment. A strange connection. The beast wasn't just an enemy to be feared. It was something more, a companion, a protector. Get back, cadet, the voice came again, urgent now, but Riley didn't move. His heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't leave the creature now, not when it had shown such trust in him. And just like that, the gauntlet test was no longer a test of survival. It was a test of humanity's place in a galaxy that didn't understand them. The tension in the arena was unbearable. Instructors shouted at each other, communicating through their comms in quick bursts, each voice laced with disbelief. The rest of the cadets had been evacuated, except for Riley. The gauntlet test, the culmination of their training, was no longer a test of survival. It had become something else entirely. The apex predator, the creature meant to tear them apart, had chosen Riley. And now, it seemed, Riley was its alpha. Cadet Cole, Commander Horan's voice crackled through his helmet's comms. Remain where you are. Do not engage. Stay still. Riley stood motionless, his gaze locked on the beast beside him. Its massive head rested on the ground, eyes half closed, a low purring vibration emanating from its chest. For all intents and purposes, it seemed like an overgrown pet, one that just happened to be the most terrifying predator in the galaxy. The instructors had no idea what to do. Riley could hear their frantic voices, the confusion thick in their words. They'd never prepared for this. They didn't understand how a creature engineered to hunt and test could simply decide to rest. Status on the creature's behavior? Someone asked, the voice trembling with the uncertainty of the situation. It's passive, the response came as if the word itself was foreign. It's not reacting to the other cadets, it's not hunting, it's not. Then why is it lying next to Cole? The voice of Instructor Dunn snapped, her tone sharp. What the hell is going on here? Riley swallowed, his hands trembling slightly around his stunner, still holstered at his side. He had expected fear, had expected the beast to be wild, unpredictable, deadly. But it wasn't any of those things right now. It was calm. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden shift in the creature. Its ears flicked upward and its dark eyes opened fully. Riley froze. He couldn't move. The predator lifted its head slowly, its gaze locking onto him, and then, without a hint of hesitation, it stood. The movement was fluid, almost graceful for a creature its size. It towered over Riley, its sleek plated hide gleaming under the faint light of the Academy's observation shields. The beast was enormous, dwarfing Riley by at least 2 meters, its muscles rippling with every movement. The stunner at Riley's side seemed like a pitiful tool against such raw, physical power. But the creature didn't attack. Instead, it took a step toward him, lowering its head slightly. Riley took an instinctive step back, but the beast mirrored him, coming closer until its massive body brushed against him. "Get away from it, Cole," one of the instructors barked, but Riley didn't move. His heart pounded in his chest as the predator continued to inch closer, nuzzling him with the top of its head as if seeking comfort. Riley felt his breath catch in his throat. This was wrong. This wasn't part of the training. It wasn't even part of the mission. But the bond he felt in that moment, the strange, inexplicable trust the beast had for him, was undeniable. He couldn't explain it, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. "Riley," a voice cut through his daze. It was Yanari, her voice filled with hesitation. "What are you doing? It's a gauntlet beast. It's not supposed to behave like this." He glanced at her, her six-limbed body hovering on the edge of the arena, eyes wide with fear and confusion. She had no idea what was happening either. None of them did. "I don't know," Riley whispered, his voice barely audible over the noise of the comms and shouting instructors. "But it's not hurting me. It's not doing anything." Suddenly, the voice of Commander Horan broke through the comms once more urgent this time. "Cole, you need to step away from the beast. Now, this is a violation of protocol. This is not how the test was supposed to go." Riley didn't answer. The creature's massive body was now leaning against him, its head resting on his shoulder as it let out a soft growl that was almost affectionate. The heat from its breath on his neck was comforting, oddly soothing. "Are you out of your mind?" One of the cadets shouted from the observation platform, their voice trembling. "That thing is a weapon, not a pet." But Riley didn't feel threatened. If anything, he felt more at ease than he had since stepping foot on Ketharn Prime. The Academy had warned him that the gauntlet test would be a trial of strength, survival, and endurance. But they hadn't warned him about this, the bond between predator and prey, between the unknown and the known. Instructor Dunn's voice came next, strained but commanding. "Cadet Cole, you are to remain still and await further instructions. Do not engage with the creature. This is not normal." Riley couldn't help it. He glanced down at the massive beast again, its dark eyes staring up at him, its body still pressed against him like it was seeking something. Comfort, protection, or perhaps something else. Riley had no idea, but he wasn't about to leave it, not now. And then, in a moment that made Riley's stomach twist with fear, the creature's massive tail flicked out, knocking aside the nearest training drone with a sharp, controlled swipe. The drone crashed into the ground, its camera lens shattered on impact. Riley's heart skipped a beat, but the creature didn't seem angry. It wasn't attacking. It was just asserting itself. "That's enough, Cole." The sharp command from Instructor Horan echoed through his helmet. The creature, as if sensing the growing tension in the arena, turned its head sharply toward the instructor. The tension in the air was palpable. Riley knew the beast was responding to him. It had chosen him, and now it was doing whatever it could to protect him. "Leave," the creature growled lowly, and for the first time, Riley felt it wasn't just a physical presence in the arena. It was a force, an intelligence, something that was not a simple test but a partnership, an unexpected bond. "Cadet Cole, step back from the creature." Instructor Dunn's voice crackled urgently through the comms again. "You are under direct orders." But Riley didn't step back. He remained still, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel out of place. His heart was still racing, His mind was still a storm of confusion, but the predator beside him had no intention of leaving. "Why is it with me?" Riley whispered to himself, the words barely audible. And then something incredible happened. As if it had been waiting for him to ask, the gauntlet beast nuzzled Riley's arm once more, its eyes softening, and it gave a low, almost comforting growl. It wasn't a test anymore. This was something else entirely. Riley stood there, caught in the tension of the moment, with the gauntlet beast pressing against him like a weight he couldn't shake. The Academy officials and instructors, their commands growing more frantic, echoed through his helmet comms, but it felt like the world outside of him was fading into the background. All he could hear now was the low, vibrating hum of the creature beside him and the rapid beating of his own heart. "Cadet Cole," Instructor Dunn's voice was sharp, but Riley barely heard it. He glanced down at the gauntlet beast which had settled fully beside him, its massive form stretched out along the ground. The beast's head rested on his boot and its black eyes watched him almost curiously. There was no aggression in the gaze, no calculation, just calm. "Do not engage," Dunn repeated, though it sounded almost like a plea. "You are under direct observation. Remain still and we will figure this out." Riley opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the creature's tail swished through the air, knocking over a training drone that had been hovering nearby. The drone's mechanical limbs flailed in a clumsy arc before crashing into the ground, its camera shattered in an instant. The instructors on the comms were silent for a heartbeat, then panic set in. "What the hell is happening?" one of the instructors yelled, but the words weren't directed at Riley. They were directed at the beast, at the situation spiraling out of control. Riley looked up, meeting the eyes of his fellow cadets, now peering down from the observation platforms above. Some were nervous, others disgusted, and a few seemed almost jealous. But no one was stepping forward, no one was making a move to intervene. They were all watching, waiting for Riley to make the next move. And then there was Yanari, the small, six-limbed cadet from Xi-4 who had been his only attempt at friendship since arriving at the academy. Her voice, quieter now, crackled through his comms. "Riley, what's going on? Why isn't it attacking you? It should be hunting." "I don't know," Riley muttered, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and confusion. "It's not doing anything." Yanari's words were tinged with disbelief. "You're not even scared. It's an apex predator. They don't stop. They don't do this." Riley swallowed, glancing down at the creature, which nuzzled his boot affectionately. Its massive form curled protectively around him, its body a comforting but dangerous weight. The voice of Commander Horan blared through his comms, commanding all cadets to remain in position and reporting that the test would continue despite the anomaly. "Cadet Cole," the commander's voice boomed, "you are to stay in position. We need to know what this means. You will not engage, do not attempt to move, and do not leave your position. The gauntlet test is not over. This is a critical situation." Riley's mind raced. The gauntlet test wasn't just about surviving the creature, it was about tracking, studying, and adapting to it. But this was different. The creature had stopped hunting, stopped being a test. It had chosen him, chosen to stay by his side. The Academy didn't understand. They were trying to impose their rules on something that defied all logic. And Riley? He was caught between the obedience he'd been taught and the strange, undeniable connection he was forming with the creature. But as the instructors debated and discussed how to handle this unplanned deviation, Riley began to understand something. This wasn't just a test of survival. It was a test of understanding. A test of humanity's place among the stars, and perhaps more importantly, how much humanity had yet to discover about itself. The Academy's behavioral scientists had been quick to theorize about the gauntlet beast's behavior. They had speculated that Riley might have given off some form of scent or pheromone that had triggered an unexpected reaction in the creature. Some believed it might have been an act of desperation. Riley, a human in a galaxy of strange beings, had no real evolutionary connection to the predator, so why would it choose him? But none of their theories were proving anything. None of them could account for the bond that had formed between them. The beast's behavior was now entirely unpredictable, and the Academy was left in disarray, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. Riley knew they weren't just studying the creature anymore, they were studying him. A few hours passed, and the situation had become more uncomfortable by the minute. Riley could feel the eyes of the Academy's leaders on him, even though they were not physically present. He was the subject of their curiosity now, the anomaly that no one had prepared for. He was the outlier. Yanari's voice broke through his comms again, quieter now, almost conspiratorial. Riley, you need to get out of there. They're going to make an example of you. This isn't normal. It's not safe. Riley glanced down at the apex predator, its body still curled around his legs. Its eyes were closed, its breathing slow and rhythmic. It didn't seem like it was going to attack. In fact, it didn't seem like it wanted anything but to stay with him. I don't think I can, Riley murmured, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over him. I think it's imprinted on me. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Yanari's voice came back, softer, as if trying to comfort him. I don't know what that means, she said, but I think you're right. You're not just another cadet to it. You're different. Different, Riley repeated, the weight of the word settling in. Was that all he was now? Just a test subject, a curiosity? Before he could respond, the voice of instructor Dunn cut through again, and this time it was accompanied by the unmistakable sound of a door sliding open. The door to the arena. Riley, you are ordered to leave the arena, Dunn's voice rang out, stern and authoritative. This experiment has gone far enough. The gauntlet test is over. Riley stood there, his mind racing. He had known this moment was coming. The Academy could not allow something like this to continue. The bond he had formed with the beast, this impossible connection, was more than they could understand. But the creature wasn't just going to let him go. As if on cue, the gauntlet beast rose to its full height, blocking Riley from the entrance. The other cadets, their faces visible through the observation windows, began to murmur in disbelief. They couldn't understand what they were seeing. Riley hesitated. The instructors, now openly anxious, barked commands over the comms, urging him to leave immediately. But Riley didn't move. He couldn't. You're not taking him from me, Riley said quietly, almost to himself. The beast growled low, its eyes locking with Riley's. And then, with a fluid movement, it stepped between him and the entrance, guarding him like an unyielding wall. Riley could hear the frantic calls from the Academy leaders through his helmet, but they were becoming distant, insignificant. The only thing that mattered now was the creature that had chosen him, that had imprinted on him. And in that moment, Riley realized something. He wasn't just a cadet anymore. He wasn't just an anomaly. He was a part of something much bigger. The tension inside the arena could have been cut with a knife. Riley stood there, facing down the gauntlet beast, which now stood tall and imposing between him and the exit, its massive form radiating an almost unnatural sense of authority. Its eyes never left him, unwavering and steadfast. He could feel the weight of the creature's gaze on him, and it was both comforting and terrifying. The voices in his comms were growing more frantic. Riley, you need to step back, Commander Horan barked. The situation is under control. Move now. But Riley didn't move. He couldn't. The beast wasn't going to let him go, and deep down, Riley didn't want to leave. Not now, not after everything that had happened. His breath came in slow, measured puffs as the realization hit him with full force. This wasn't just about survival. It wasn't even just about the test. This had become something else entirely, something he didn't understand but couldn't deny. Cadet Cole, Instructor Dunn's voice was filled with a growing sense of urgency. This isn't a game. You have no idea what this means for your future. Riley glanced at her through his helmet's visor. His mind was racing with the weight of her words. He had no idea what this meant for him, no idea how to navigate the mess his bond with the creature had created. But that didn't change the fact that the beast had chosen him. It had rejected its programming, its instincts to stay by his side. And Riley knew, deep down, that he couldn't just walk away from it now. The Academy's leaders had been speaking in low, worried tones through the comms, and Riley could hear the panic seeping into their voices. They didn't know how to handle this. They didn't know what to make of him or the gauntlet beast's inexplicable behavior. But it wasn't just the Academy that was in turmoil, it was Riley too. He was no longer a cadet who just wanted to prove himself. He was something different, an anomaly, as they'd said, and that difference terrified him. You need to get back, Yanari's voice came through his comms, quieter than before. This is going too far. They'll make you a target. You're becoming a liability. Riley didn't respond. He couldn't. The weight of the beast against his side was heavy but comforting. It wasn't like the other cadets who saw only danger in the creature. It wasn't a test to it, it was something else. Riley didn't understand it, but the bond felt real. He could feel the creature's low, rumbling purr vibrating through his bones, calming him. And for the first time since arriving on Ketharn Prime, Riley didn't feel so alone. He wasn't an outsider anymore. But that feeling of connection was at odds with the world around him. The academy was crumbling under the pressure of this anomaly. Their carefully curated system, where everything had a place and purpose, had been thrown into disarray by something no one had prepared for. And now, Riley was the cause. Riley took a deep breath, steeling himself for the inevitable. He had to make a choice. The creature had imprinted on him, yes, but that didn't mean the academy would simply accept it. They were pushing harder now, trying to get him out of the arena. He could hear the frantic orders coming through the comms, the instructors shouting, their voices rising in volume. "Cadet Cole," Commander Horan's voice came again, this time more forceful. "You will leave the arena immediately. The gauntlet test is not over." Riley shook his head, his eyes never leaving the beast. "I'm not leaving." The words came out before he even had time to think about them. The certainty in his voice surprised him. He wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't leave the creature. Not when it had chosen him. Not when it had given him something he hadn't realized he needed: connection. Trust. "Do you understand what you're saying?" Instructor Dunn's voice was cold now, filled with a mix of disbelief and frustration. "You are not in control here. You are not the one who gets to make the decisions." Riley didn't respond. The beast growled softly, almost as if sensing his inner turmoil. It took a step forward, brushing up against his leg, its body a solid presence in the chaos. Its eyes met his, and for the briefest of moments, Riley felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of belonging. "I'm not going anywhere," Riley repeated, this time with more conviction. The academy didn't understand. They couldn't understand. They didn't know what it was like to be the only human among a galaxy of aliens who had known each other for centuries. But he knew now. The beast understood him, and he had to stay. The instructor's voice came back again, but Riley didn't hear it. The words were lost to him as the weight of the moment settled over him like a storm. He wasn't just standing in the arena anymore. He wasn't just a cadet. He was an outcast, an anomaly, and possibly, just possibly, the key to something no one had anticipated. The bond between humanity and the galaxy's apex predators could mean something far bigger than any test. And Riley, for all his flaws, was right in the middle of it. "Cadet Cole," the voice came again, but this time it wasn't the frantic shout of an instructor. It was something different, something softer. "We need to get you out of there." Riley didn't move. His feet felt like they were anchored to the ground, not out of fear, but out of a strange certainty. He wasn't just a cadet anymore. He was part of something new, something that couldn't be explained, quantified, or measured by the Academy's rigid rules. And then, as if in response to the mounting pressure, the gauntlet beast moved closer. Its massive head lowered again, its hot breath washing over Riley's leg as it nuzzled him, a gentle yet powerful gesture of protection. It didn't look at the instructors, didn't acknowledge their presence at all. It only had eyes for Riley. Riley reached down, his fingers brushing the creature's plated hide, and for a moment everything else faded away. There was no academy, there were no instructors, there was only him and the beast. And in that moment, Riley realized something that he had never fully understood before: the power of trust. The bond between the two of them, though inexplicable, was real. And no matter what the academy did, no matter what they ordered, this bond wasn't something he was willing to break. Riley's heart hammered in his chest, but his legs remained firm, anchored by a strange resolve he couldn't quite explain. The gauntlet beast, its enormous form now fully positioned between him and the instructors, was not just a creature. It was his shield, his protector, and it had made itself clear. There would be no walking away, not while it was by his side. The academy was on the verge of losing control. Riley could hear the murmurs and urgent commands coming from the other side of the observation glass, the instructors and high-ranking officials scrambling to make sense of the situation. Some were panicking, others attempting to reassert command. They had no idea how to handle a situation like this. But Riley was standing in the middle of it all, uncertain of what the future held, but certain of one thing: the creature would not leave him, and neither would he leave it. "Cadet Cole," Commander Horan's voice broke through the noise in his helmet comms, filled with authority. "You are out of line. We've given you direct orders. You are to step back immediately and remove yourself from the arena. This test is not over. You do not get to make the rules." Riley stood still, his hand resting gently on the beast's thick hide. Its warmth seeped into him, and the low, rumbling purr felt almost like a pulse, steady, calming, and undeniably real. "I'm not leaving," Riley finally said, his voice stronger now, resolute. Whatever this is, it's not a test. It's not about me being a cadet anymore. It's about this creature and what it means." The words came out without thinking, and though Riley could feel the weight of the Academy's eyes upon him, his own resolve only deepened. The creature wasn't just another test for him to survive. It was a message, a sign of something greater than the rigid, calculated system the Academy had built. It was humanity's presence, misunderstood, unpredictable, and willing to take risks that others wouldn't. Step away from the gauntlet beast, Cadet Cole. Dunn's voice was sharper now, laced with frustration. You are disrupting the entire program. The creature was never meant to form attachments. You've compromised the integrity of the test. You need to come with us now. Riley's mind raced. He knew what they were trying to do. They didn't understand. They didn't know that the bond between him and the creature wasn't some accident. It was real. It was something that defied their expectations, their programming, and their rules. This wasn't just about control. It was about understanding. The creature shifted slightly, its body still pressed against Riley's legs, its massive head tilting upward to meet his gaze. It was as if it could sense the growing tension in the air, the threat that was not coming from it, but from the Academy that couldn't comprehend its behavior. The creature's massive tail flicked once, dislodging another drone that had ventured too close. Riley could feel the surge of energy in the air, the unspoken challenge. The beast was willing to fight to protect him. But Riley wasn't ready for that, not yet. I won't run, Riley muttered, almost to himself. I'm not a weapon, I'm not some test subject for you to dissect. His words, though quiet, were filled with more determination than he realized. They weren't just for the Academy. They were for himself. He had come to this Academy with hopes of proving himself to a galaxy that had dismissed humanity as unpredictable, erratic. But now, standing before the apex predator, he realized he wasn't the one who needed to prove anything. It was the galaxy that needed to prove it could understand humanity. A moment of silence followed, broken only by the soft growl of the beast, which seemed to affirm Riley's words. Riley felt the weight of every eye on him, from the instructors in the observation tower to the other cadets who watched from a distance. He wasn't just a cadet anymore. He was an enigma, a challenge to everything they thought they knew about humanity, about the universe. And whether they liked it or not, he had to see this through. The voice of Director Senhaler, a high-ranking official from the Academy's military department, crackled through Riley's comms next. His tone was cold, measured. Cadet Cole, you are obstructing military protocol. Your actions have created a situation that jeopardizes the safety of all personnel involved. This is your final warning. Step away from the creature. Now. Riley stood tall, though he felt the weight of those words pressed down on him. It wasn't just about him anymore. The Academy was watching. The galaxy was watching. He had become the test, and whatever happened next, he couldn't back down. I'm not leaving, Riley said again, his voice unwavering. If you want me to leave, you'll have to take the creature first, but I'm not going anywhere without it. Silence followed, and for the first time, Riley noticed the growing sense of unease among the Academy officials. They were unsure of what to do. The rules they had built, the rigid systems that governed everything, had been thrown out the window by a single cadet and a creature that refused to obey. And then, to everyone's shock, the gauntlet beast made its move. It stepped forward, its massive paws barely making a sound as it approached the entrance. Riley's heart skipped a beat. The creature wasn't just standing guard anymore. It was pushing forward, pushing against the barriers the Academy had set. It had made its choice, and it was not backing down. The beast's growl was low, almost a rumble, as it swiped at the entrance doors, forcing them to slide open with a sharp mechanical screech. Riley's pulse quickened as he realized what was happening. The Academy had tried to contain the creature, but now it was as if the creature was demanding its freedom. And Riley, in a strange twist of fate, had become the key to that freedom. Stay back, one of the instructors shouted, but it was too late. With a sudden, powerful movement, the creature moved into the hallway beyond the arena, its massive form filling the space. Riley didn't hesitate. He followed. Cadet Cole, Director Senhaler's voice now held a mix of fury and disbelief. What are you doing? You are no longer in control here. You will be removed from the Academy immediately. But Riley didn't listen. The creature, which had once been a test subject, was now his companion, his ally, and perhaps more than that, something the Academy couldn't possibly understand. He stepped forward, his mind made up. The creature wasn't going to leave him, not now, and neither was he. Riley moved forward, step by cautious step, as the gauntlet beast led the way. The massive creature's sleek, muscular form was a powerful presence in the hallway, its dark eyes constantly watching for threats, its body rippling with every step. Riley followed close behind, his boots scraping lightly against the polished floors. The hallway was eerily silent except for the soft, rhythmic thrum of the beast's growl resonating through the walls. The air felt thick, oppressive with the weight of what was happening. Behind him, the doors to the arena had slid closed, but Riley could feel the Academy's leaders behind him, watching. The pressure was mounting, and he knew they wouldn't let this stand for long. He wasn't just a cadet anymore. He was something different, a symbol of everything the Academy feared. Humanity wasn't supposed to be able to bond with creatures like this. They weren't supposed to be able to control them. But Riley hadn't controlled the beast. It had chosen him. And despite all the uncertainty and fear that had accompanied this strange bond, Riley couldn't deny the connection. It felt real. It felt like something worth protecting. He could hear the faint sounds of footsteps behind him now, echoing through the hall as a few instructors followed. Their voices were hushed, tense. "Where is he going?" one of them asked. "He can't do this. He's breaking every protocol." Another voice, more authoritative, cut through the air. Riley's stomach twisted, but he didn't look back. His eyes were fixed on the path ahead, watching the gauntlet beast. It paused momentarily, its massive head swiveling toward him. Its eyes met his, locking on him with an intensity that made Riley's pulse quicken. The creature's presence was overwhelming, its bond with him undeniable. "What now, cadet?" The voice of Director Senhaller boomed through the comms, laced with frustration and urgency. "You're disobeying direct orders. Come back now." Riley's steps faltered for a moment. He could feel the weight of Senhaller's words pressing down on him. The director was one of the highest-ranking officials in the Academy. His orders should have been absolute, but Riley had reached a point where nothing felt absolute anymore. His place in the galaxy, his understanding of who he was and what humanity was capable of, had been forever altered by this creature. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, but so had he. Stay with the beast, Riley thought, his heart hammering. It chose you, it trusts you. And for the first time, Riley understood. He wasn't here to prove anything to the Academy. He wasn't here to fulfill their expectations. The creatures, beasts, predators, whatever they were, had been created to test cadets. But Riley had become part of something far more complex than any test. This was a bond, a force that transcended the Academy's rigid rules. He could feel the creature's muscles ripple beside him, and he saw its massive tail flick gently to one side as it paced with him. It was waiting for him to make the choice. The creature wasn't just a test for Riley, it was with him. It was his. Riley's mind flashed back to the earlier moments of the gauntlet test, when the beast had first locked eyes with him. He had been scared, unsure, but now, looking at the creature, all that fear had faded. He had survived the test by doing nothing, by being with the creature, not against it. This wasn't a test of strength, of combat. It was a test of humanity's compassion, its ability to adapt, to form bonds where others might see only danger. The decision was clear, but it wasn't easy. He had no idea what would happen next. Would the Academy expel him? Would they try to isolate him, to suppress this bond he had formed? Would the galaxy's perception of humanity be forever changed by his actions here today? "I'm not coming back," Riley finally said, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. The comms were silent for a moment, a palpable pause in the air. Riley could feel the tension from the officials. He could almost hear their disbelief. "You're making a grave mistake, Cadet Cole," Senhaller's voice returned, cold and formal. "You're disrupting everything we've worked for. You will not get away with this." Riley could feel the eyes of the Academy officials on him, but he wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't a cadet. He wasn't someone who could be controlled by their expectations. He had something else now. A purpose, a bond, something beyond the tests and the rigid boundaries of the Academy. The gauntlet beast growled again, this time more assertively. It stepped forward, its body now almost blocking Riley from the view of the doors at the end of the hall. The creature wasn't just protecting him physically. It was becoming a shield, a symbol of everything humanity could achieve if they just trusted themselves. The bond between Riley and the beast was not a fluke. It wasn't an accident. It was something new, something unexplained, and it was his. Riley took a deep breath. His pulse slowed, the noise from the comms fading into the background. It was like the rest of the galaxy didn't matter anymore. There was just him and the beast. "You said you weren't going to let me leave," Riley said, his voice cutting through the silence. The creature let out a low growl of agreement. Riley looked up at the door ahead. The Academy, the galaxy, they were watching him. They were waiting for him to break, for him to fail. But Riley wasn't going to fail. He stepped forward. The creature stepped with him. "I've made my choice," Riley said, more to himself than anyone else. "And I'm not going back.